One of the great things about my mom is also the worst thing about my mom, which was she taught me never to be satisfied. And that's great because it makes me want to just do more and be more. But it's also a burden because it's hard to find a level of satisfaction. It's very challenging for me to sit down and watch TV for long periods of time because I'm just thinking about all the other things I can be doing, whether it's work or whether it's groceries or, it's very hard for me to relax.
That's awesome.
From El Paso to Houston, Stephanie Graves has built a path defined by fearless entrepreneurship and boundless determination. As founder and CEO of Q10 Property Management, she's grown from managing a single property to overseeing nearly 10,000 units. Behind Stephanie's success lies an unshakable confidence that anything is possible with hard work and resourcefulness. Through it all, she maintains an approachable leadership style that values authentic connections with everyone from maintenance staff to industry executives.
I'm not teaching you anything amazing. Like, I am not some brilliant person, but I hope that I say something or show you something in a way that clicks for you that makes a difference. No one person can fill someone else's bucket completely. We've got multiple buckets. And so figuring out those people in your life that can feed or fill your bucket is important. And same thing with business. And why do I have 5 businesses that I run? Because my bucket isn't full with property management. There's always going to be something where I've got to find something that ignites or that can feed someone and feed myself.
Do you feel like you ever had imposter syndrome?
I have it. No doubt.
Well, okay. Well, maybe a place where we could start or expand on is a little bit about you and your upbringing, like where you grew up and all of that fun stuff.
Okay. So I grew up in El Paso, Texas. I wasn't born there, but we got there as soon as we could. Had a single mom. And so she was from there and we ended up in El Paso. Grew up there, went to high school, and then knew that I didn't really want to live there for the rest of my life and knew that I had to go to college. So I left the day after I graduated high school. Like literally my car was packed the day I graduated high school.
And went where?
And I went to San Marcos to Southwest Texas, which is now Texas State, and was there for several years. And I was working full time when I was going to school. So I ran out of classes that would meet my work schedule. I worked at a bank. And so I ended up going to St. Edward's out of Austin, graduated from St. Edward's while I worked full time and got my degree, worked at a bank for a long time. And then one of my customers was into tax credits when tax credits were super sexy. They were right out of the market. That's how we were going to change Section 8 and started with them doing development deals. So my entry into the business was a little different than most. Many people that are in the property management realm, started as a leasing agent and I was just looking for a job. And I started on the developer side. So I was running deals and learning about, NOI and performance when I just started in the business. And then I think that's helped me a great deal because I relate more to the owners than most do. I'm looking at it from both sides of it. And then ended up in the management side and moved to Houston and have worked for many initial companies that start with initials and end with initials over the last couple of years. And then in 2015, I started Q10 and we have been in business 10 years this year.
That's awesome.
Yes.
Growing up, you said you had a single mom.
Single mom, yep.
Do you have any siblings?
No, only child.
Only child.
Yeah, and I only have a daughter. She's an only child. Yeah, so my mom and I kind of grew up together. She had me when she was 20, so it was a much different relationship. She's still, my best friend. She is retired from the business world, but works for me on the side.
Oh, what does she do?
She does account. So she was in, when I was growing up, she was in insurance and then got into the computer tech space, working for CSC, and then retired probably 2 or 3 years ago. And I just didn't want to see her retired and bored because she's still fairly young. And I was like, do you have, you can work from home? Do you want to work for me? So she helps out a great deal and does a lot of back end stuff, helping accounting. Yeah. Okay.
So what did you, going to college, you knew that, did your mom go to college as well?
She didn't, no.
She didn't?
I didn't have an option. It was never discussed if you're going to college.
Okay.
It was, what college are you applying to? So it was never like, oh, what do you want to be when you grow up? It was, you're going to go to college and figure it out.
So she really prioritized education.
Absolutely. Yeah. It was always important. I was always involved with many things. I was, cheerleader and band and extracurricular everything. And it was far less competitive than it is now. Like I hear horror stories about people going to college, about trying to get into college and you have to start when you're a sophomore.
Yeah.
Like literally I applied to 3 schools and was like, and I got into all 3 and where are you going to go? And I just chose Southwest because I had a friend that was going there and it wasn't too far away from home. And I got selected to be an RA, like a resident assistant.
Yeah.
So I got my housing for free. So that was for me, I was paying for my own college and, I got grants and loans. And so I was like, if I can get my housing for free, then like I'm in no matter what.
It's so funny. I've done dozens of these and that's actually a very common reason why people even get into the industry.
Really?
It's
right.
like
Yeah.
as a leasing agent, right?
Yes,
Like, oh, it's like,
totally.
wow, I can get my housing for free and still make good money. Like,
Yes.
okay, great. And it's so many times I've heard that story where that's like a motivator. Of course, this is to be an RA, but
Yeah. It's interesting that you say that because I've never, as many times as I've said this, I've never done the correlation between, I was in housing, I got free housing and I was, serving as an RA, a resident assistant. So you're helping kids, right? You're helping other kids and you're servicing the housing. I never really correlated that, but yeah, I guess I was in housing. Yeah. It's kind of the same story as a leasing agent, but just a different perspective, different area.
yeah. What else did your mom? So it sounds like if you were to describe her like parenting style, what would it be?
She very loving and supportive, right? But I was scared to death to disappoint my mother. I mean, scared to death. Like she never hit me, but she definitely grabbed my arm very hard with her long nails occasionally. And there was a little bit of, I think she understood the magnitude of being a single mom and having a daughter that could easily go off the rails. I was by myself a lot. I was a latchkey kid. And so, I would come home from school and be by myself. And so, you can get into a lot of trouble in that capacity when you've got boys or girls down the road and you've got kids running in and out. And there was times when, I was very much a rule follower and she didn't have to worry about me doing crazy things. I mean, I grew up in El Paso, so many of my friends were going over to Mexico in the evenings and, sneaking out of their house and going over to Juarez and partying all night long.
Oh, and if you go to Mexico, the rules are much more lenient.
Yeah. I mean, you can drink when you're 14, right?
Yeah.
And so in high school, that's what everybody did. And I never felt like I needed to do that. I never wanted to. I was, didn't drink until I was 21. But I knew that if I stayed in El Paso, that I would probably go down that road of things that I didn't want for my future.
Yeah. You never drank until you were 21?
Right. Yeah. Never.
Wow.
No
And you never
drinking, no smoking, nothing.
You didn't get influenced growing up? Like what was your set of friends like then?
I was a little bit nerdy. I was in band. I think I was popular, but it was just because I was doing things kind of like now, like I'm just involved in things. So I don't know that I'm popular, but lots of people know me because I do stuff, right? I was busy. So I think in high school, it was the same. Influenced is interesting. People never asked me or tried to push me in any certain direction because they knew that I wasn't interested. Which is interesting. When I talk to people now about that, or I talk to people about not knowing some of the things that goes on in the drama of multifamily, they say that like, because people have a certain level of respect for me because of how I hold myself. So they don't even think about it. Like they're like, oh no, that Stephanie would never do that. I never had to say, no, I'm not interested because no one ever asked. Does that make sense?
How would you describe how you hold yourself?
I think I'm proud enough of who I am and what I want to be. I'm sure of myself. And I just don't, while I can be empathetic to others, I don't let people give excuses for not getting things done, or I don't give myself excuses. So I think that, I don't know. You don't know until you know, right? You don't know until someone points it out. I try to be very humble, very approachable. I was always like that. I was friends with everyone. I didn't pick on any certain kids. I didn't hang with the jocks. Literally it was, the jocks were important, everyone. So I think it was just, no one felt like it was something, I wasn't trying to fit in. If you liked me, you liked me. And if you didn't, it didn't really hurt my feelings. So maybe that was why I wasn't pressured, but it's still the same now.
That hasn't changed over time?
No, not at all. Like literally, I know almost every single one of my maintenance person's names. I know every single one of my owners' names. I know VPs and owners of companies. The other day, I had something wrong with my copy machine, and I was texting my copier guy to say, hey, can you come fix my copier? Yes, the CEO of the company is texting my copier guy. And I sent him a video, and I was like, this is the sound that it is making. his name is similar to the CEO of another property management company. And I sent it to him and said, hey, can you help me with, like, can you fix this? And I sent him a video. And he is so funny. He's a young guy here. And he sent me a text message and said, you should definitely burn it. And I was like, what in the world? And then I realized, oh my gosh. I said, I am so sorry. I did not mean to have the CEO of blah, blah, blah come fix my copy machine. And so I saw him the other day and he was like, what's the deal? And we use the same copy machine guy, as a matter of fact. So that was even like, he's like, oh, I use him. Yeah. So it's just, I think I just try to be as approachable as possible. I'm not, I'm sure of myself, but I'm not egotistical. I hope not. We all do the same thing. We all wear the same pants and, so I think that's it, is I try to just be as approachable as possible.
Do you feel like you see yourself the same way others see you?
I think so. I mean, I realize it a little bit more now. When I spend time with my team members, I used to know every single manager and be with them once or twice a week. And I don't do that as much. I know them all and I see them all at meetings, but I don't spend as much individual time with them. And I was on property the other day, spending some individual time with a manager and a supervisor. And I didn't think about it as I was talking to them about things. But later on, one of the other supervisors said, so-and-so said that you spent some time with them and they were like, felt such a heavy value of you spending your time with them. And I don't see it like that, and so it was interesting to hear that perspective. So I think I see myself like everyone else does. But then when things like that are pointed out, I think, oh, wow, like my voice is more important than I think it is, which I think is a good quality. I don't ever want to think that I'm better than anyone else or that, every day I still feel like it's a house of cards.
Yeah, I actually really resonate with that. I was doing a podcast recording with a pretty senior leader, one of the PMCs here. Mm-hmm. And we were just talking about the podcast and he was like, oh, this is really cool. And their CEO is also big into posting and LinkedIn mm-hmm. and all this stuff. And he asked me a question, which I thought was really interesting and I've been thinking about. He's like, oh, are you afraid that people are not going to approach you now? If this becomes like big and, the podcast is well known. And I thought it was really interesting because I was like, wait, I feel like people would be more likely to approach me. Mm-hmm. So I told him that and he was like, I feel like people would actually be more intimidated because they don't know whether, and it just like made me realize, I was like, I never thought about that. I never mm-hmm. thought about that. So like now if I go to a conference, in my mind, I was like, oh, cool. Like people would recognize me and like, it would be a good thing. It would be a good thing and be easier to approach because now you have something to relate to. Mm-hmm. But I just thought that was really interesting and a really interesting framing. And I think a lot of leaders don't really realize the weight you mm-hmm. can have, right? Like the example you forget because you're interacting with so many people and there's almost this discrepancy between the weight of your interaction to them and the weight of their interaction to you. I think another example that comes to mind is Jeff Bezos was like famous for describing the way they would run meetings is before a meeting, he would require them to write like a 5-page document. So mm-hmm. it'd be really thorough and there was no presentations. It was just really big documents. But the actual nature of the meeting would be incredibly messy. So there was no structure. And the whole idea was like, you come to the meeting with really refined thoughts. Mm-hmm. And then the meeting itself is really messy. And obviously if you're working for Jeff Bezos and you're presenting to the CEO of Amazon, you're really, you want to make sure you're doing a good job. So in one of the meetings, he was sitting there and they were presenting or talking about the item at hand. And he stopped the meeting and was like, wait, did you guys like rehearse this? And they were like, yeah. And he's like, never do that again. And I think the idea, for some reason I think about that because I'm like, wow, like that's just probably one meeting for him. And these people are presenting and preparing so much. So there's just like It's interesting to think about when you get, and I think, maybe what's happening in our lives right now is very much like that. Like people get to the point where no one is frank with them anymore, right? No one is just talking to them like they're a person. They're talking to them like they're almost an object, right? Maybe that's, I don't want to talk politics or anything, but maybe that's part of what's, happening in our world right now is that you get to that point where people are rehearsing and they're very meticulous and methodical about what they're telling you and how they're interacting with you. And so you lose all of the authenticity and the real ideas that people have because they can't think freely because they have to present to you in a way that of the idea of what you are, not necessarily approachable. And, as I say this, I almost think that
that could be a burden that I have a little bit in my company now. Like, as we've grown up, and those of us that have grown up together, and I have, supervisors and my CFO, we've been together for 10 years, right? We started with one property, and now we've got 65 properties and almost 10,000 units, right? And so we're together and we can talk to each other in a way that makes sense and speak freely. But those that are entering into it, when it's this big now, the way they talk to us isn't like it was when we were littler, right? Mm-hmm. Like, they're coming to us with, wow, I'm entering this company that has, we're no longer mid-size, we're a large management company, but to us, we're still just scrappy, right? And they're coming to us like, wow, I am so excited to work for you. And we're like, oh my God, So I think about that now. Like, what does that look like for them to present their ideas? I'm not going to get as authentic of feedback from people as maybe I used to, because they have that idea of impression, even if we don't feel that way.
Yeah, there's this idea that when famous people become famous, and it happens over a quick period of time, there's kind of this mismatch, because like, if you become famous over a year, you're not really changing that much, most likely, in that year, but people's perception of you is completely different. It was actually really interesting too. This is kind of a tangent point, but the podcast I did this morning, he was talking about how he was on the operator side, but then for a couple of years switched to the vendor side, and he was a senior leader on the operator side. And he was like, wow, it's really interesting how the people that used to talk to me and hit me up now like avoid me even when we pass by in a hallway. Oh yeah.
That is very evident in the multifamily space. Yeah. When I left my previous company and I was doing speaking engagements, I started a preschool at the same time that I started Q10, but I had the land before, and I knew that, when I left my previous employer, that I was going to go on the circuit, train all over the country while I had this little project going on. Never thought I would go back into multifamily. And so technically I was on the vendor side as a speaker, and it was astounding to see the differences, because we're such an intimate, incestual industry. Certainly in Houston, it's very, you spend a lot of time with people in various avenues. And so when truly these people that you see on a regular basis, I see some apartment friends 2 and 3 times a week, right? Instantly are like, oh, like I'm no longer business. It was an interesting way to deal with things. And people that have worked for me that have gone to the supplier side, same thing. They're like, wow, I can't believe how bad, like not you, but I can't believe how bad management people treat suppliers, even though I was one of them. Yeah, it's interesting. Especially now, you're in town for rodeo season. So all bets are off. All it is can I have rodeo tickets? Is all I hear nonstop. Like, do you have rodeo tickets? I'm like, no, I don't ask for rodeo tickets. Don't ask me. Go somewhere else. You can buy them for $29.
You mentioned something earlier about being sure of yourself. How do you reconcile that with, do you feel like you ever had imposter syndrome? I
have it. No doubt. I still, I've been president of the apartment association. I own my own company. We're, multi-million-dollar company. I'm on the executive board for TAA. I'm going to go testify in front of the House committee on stuff next week. Like, as I say these things, I'm like, wow, like I've arrived. I'm on my way. But every time I walk in a room at the apartment association, I was just on a committee meeting with all of these TA leaders, and I'm like, what am I doing here? Like, you know what I mean? I still have problems validating my position, right? When I don't find the words, or when I'm, when I do something different, I certainly have it now, no doubt. I mean, I know that I'm a successful person. I know that I have great people surrounding me, and I know that, I'm certainly proud of the things that I've accomplished and who I am and the things that I do. But it's not for, it's simply because I have worked hard. I have had good relationships and good opportunities. And, I still think, wow, I don't deserve this. I don't belong here. These people are so much smarter than I am. They're so, every day I feel that way. Yeah.
Where does all this ambition come from, you think? To do all of these things at such a high level?
One of the great things about my mom is also the worst thing about my mom, which was she taught me never to be satisfied. And that's great because it makes me want to just do more and be more. But it's also a burden because it's hard to find a level of satisfaction. it's very challenging for me to sit down and watch TV for long periods of time because I'm just thinking about all the other things I can be doing, whether it's work or whether it's groceries or, it's very hard for me to relax. And so I'm very grateful that she has, that I do think that anything's possible. But there is a burden that goes with that, because I think when and if I don't have Q10 anymore, whether I sell it, whether I give it away, whether I burn it to the ground, right? Whatever happens, like I just go, okay, well then I'll just do such and such. Just the thought of, I had absolutely no childcare experience, and I decided I would open up a 20,000 square foot preschool, and I had 250 kids at one point. That's ridiculous. Like, who would do that? Like, from the ground, like relocated a gas pipeline, and we had meetings at the school for apartments, right? Just thinking about that, it's so ridiculous. But no, it's not ridiculous, right? Like, everybody is so capable of anything that they can put their minds to. And I know that sounds so cliche, but it's so absolutely true. As long as it doesn't involve sheer force you're not capable of doing, right? Like I certainly can't, swim across the Nile River, right? But something, you're just, don't underestimate the things that you're capable of doing if you just want to do it and you can find resources, because it's possible.
How did your mom impart that on you? Was it through you observing her behavior? Was it through specific things she said growing up? Yeah,
I don't really know. My mom was ambitious and she worked hard and all those things, but she didn't have a degree. She didn't, start her own business. She didn't have an entrepreneurial spirit, right? It was just, I don't know. I really don't know. Like, it's kind of like when they say, how come you didn't do drugs? Like, what was the moment in time when someone said, don't do drugs? And you're like, I don't know. I don't know how I learned. Yeah. I wish that I did. I hope that I'm instilling it in my daughter that she can do everything. Maybe I'm instilling in her, oh my God, I don't want to work as hard as my mom does. I'm hoping that I'm pushing it in the right direction, meaning I want to work hard and achieve these things and not the opposite.
When you think about like the collective set of values that you want to instill on your daughter, like what would those be?
I think humbleness is next to godliness. And if you can have a humble attitude about things, you can accomplish so much more and be approachable. She is an only child, and I was very conscious of that growing up, raising her. She's 14 now. And I remember, like, I would make her overshare because I had heard all of these horror stories about, only children that were selfish and they didn't want to, I was literally like, oh no, nothing's yours. Everything's everybody else's, right? Nothing, you can have one special thing, but everything else is open to everyone else, because I knew that I really wanted her to be open about things and not think that she was spoiled. And, and she is such a giving child. Like, I love it when I see her when we'll go shopping for something or whatever, she, it's always, I want to get this for so-and-so and this for so-and-so. And she's very giving and very open in sharing her things. And she loves kids. So having those characteristics. And the other thing I think is important is being sure enough about yourself. Like, I think a parent's job has nothing to do with education or school. It has everything to do with making your child mentally capable of understanding and coping with failure. That is what our job is as a parent. That is it. Because there are going to be so many disappointments in their life that will make or break someone. She'll learn how to add. And if she doesn't, she has a calculator. She'll learn how to spell. And if not, there's spell check, right? But that mental acuity and that emotional intelligence is what we have to teach our children. And it was so funny. Yesterday, she got in the car. Hopefully her teacher doesn't hear this. She got in the car after this thing she did. And she said, oh, my teacher is so emotionally unintelligent. And I was like, what? She was like, she was in there, she was crying. Like, who cries in front of their children at school? And I was like, right. So we talked through it, and she was like, and I said, well, let's talk about when you got upset about such and such. And she was like, oh no, I'm not emotionally intelligent yet, but for my age, I'm doing a very good job. So I was like, wow, my child just said emotionally unintelligent. And like, I'm okay, score. Check one in the mom column for the day that my child even understands what that's about.
So I feel like education, having started a Montessori school, has been a big part of, and it seems like that's also reflective in the way you want to raise your daughter. What is what is, maybe for those listening, what is a Montessori school and why did you want to start one?
my daughter I was pregnant. I was looking for daycares. Couldn't really find what I was looking for. Had come across Montessori. I wasn't raised in a Montessori school. I didn't have any experience, but I had met someone and just had walked into a Montessori school and saw 3-year-olds sorting colors and working independently in the room in a Montessori school. And I had just come from, I don't know, Kids or something else where I was touring. And when I visited schools, I sat in the classroom for 15 or 20 minutes and just observed. That was how I interviewed them. And so when I saw these 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds, I saw, 6 and 7-year-olds that were helping 2-year-olds learn how to sort things, right? When I saw that, I was like, what is this? And how do I learn as much as possible? Because, again, I think everyone is capable of things, right? And if this school can think that children are capable of doing these things, they were pouring their own water, they were feeding, they were eating as a child. You go to a regular preschool and they're like little animals eating with their hands. And I went to this Montessori school and they literally had mini forks and mini spoons and they were eating like normal, like mini humans. And I said, this is amazing. So it's a structured environment where you do not underestimate the ability of children. You give them rights, you give them responsibilities, and you teach them order in their lives. And when you do that, that's a simple way of saying it, right? When you do that and you let the ages work within each other to teach each other, the older kids that are in the advanced classes are teaching the younger kids. You don't know anything until you teach someone else it. And so the fact that, and I learned that from my education. And so I was like, wow, like everything about this is so beautiful because this is how we should be teaching. This is how we should be living our lives. Everybody does better when everybody does better. And you can, if you can master something so well that you can teach someone else it, then that's what I want for my kids. So was looking for a school, couldn't find one. Had taken her to several schools and then decided, well, that's okay. I'll just build a school. And if I can build it in 12 months, then I can probably have it done by the time she goes to preschool and then it'll all be great. So I literally took a pro forma for a multifamily property that said apartments and I changed it to children and I changed occupancy to enrollment and I changed, leasing hospitality to snacks. Like literally I took a pro forma from a property and changed it to a preschool, built it out, pulled a market survey, which doesn't exist in the daycare world. And I went to different daycares and did my own market survey, figured out who my comps were going to be, and conned my husband, who's very risk averse, into like, we can just build this, and went to a banker and said, this is what I want. And, we went to several bankers, many bankers said no. But we found a lender that specialized in daycares. And she said, okay, like show me what you got. And I showed her my performance. She was super impressed. I said, would you like to see my market survey? And she was like, what is a market survey? And so she was like, yeah, we can do this. And I said, how, like what percentage? And she said, I'm 90% sure we can do this. So I had I had a degree. My husband had a degree, but absolutely no Montessori experience. And Montessori is not like a franchise. Like anybody can use the name. And so I didn't want a franchise. I knew that because I don't play by the rules very well. So I found land and we bought the land and we built it from scratch. And while we were preparing the land, we learned that there was a 4-foot wide pipeline that was a main supplier of natural gas running through the center of our land. So we were going to have to build like 2 buildings on the side. And so my husband called CenterPoint and said, I'm wondering if you can move this pipeline. And they said, yeah, we can move the pipeline for $100,000. And so we went to the guy that sold us the land and said, if you can give us some money to move this pipeline, then we'll make this entire tract of land will then be usable. If we move this major problem, this land's been sitting here, if we move this to another location, all of this land becomes sellable. And he said, okay.
Which would why, and the benefit for him is
that we were buying half a tract of land. So he would have the entire other tract that would be ready to sell to someone else.
Oh, I see.
Because it had been sitting there. He thought it was this great investment, but no one could really build anything except a parking lot.
So it's a huge net positive then for him as well.
And he didn't even who even thought about moving a pipeline? Is that even possible? CenterPoint. And so, we got the pipeline moved and built a school, and we had it for, it probably was start to finish about 5 years. We were running Q10 out of the preschool. I built an extra teacher's lounge, and that was like Q10 world headquarters. So I had my accounting team would come in and they would drop their kids off in the rooms, and then they would come into the teacher's lounge and they would have their double monitors and they would work all day and eat lunch there because we had a full, Taco Tuesday. We had a full ensemble of food, and we would all eat with little forks and little spoons, and the nap time was great. All the lights were off and we would finish working. I had vendors that would meet me there, and we would have meetings inside of the teachers' lounges. And that was the Q10. It was called Elements Montessori Days. So we had up to 185 kids when we left. Some of the people that work for me now worked at the preschool. I have 3 teachers that worked for me at the preschool that work for me as leasing agents now.
That's really cool.
I have my assistant was my assistant there. She would open and close the school for me. So literally my day would be 5 a.m., get to the school, prepare breakfast, be there until when the parents were dropping off. So I'd be there till about 9:30. Then I would change my shoes, change my outfit, go to property and be on property all day long, and then be back right around 3:30 when parents were picking up, and be there probably until 6 or 7 that night, finish up, clean, and then start all over again every day.
Did your daughter go to the school?
She did. Mm-hmm. Yeah. We actually held her back 1 year so we could keep her another year there because she was, one of the oldest at that point. And so she was running the classrooms with the teachers for the kids. She was running the Montessori program in the toddler classes when she was 6 years old.
So how do you recruit? So you had to recruit you had to find the kids.
Yeah.
What was that process like?
Yeah, we had open houses. I had dirty boot tours where we literally I did all the things that I did in multifamily, I did with the preschool. I made flyers. We made little benches that said, get a step up with your kids at Elements. And we delivered them to all the restaurants to put into their bathrooms. So they would go in with their kids. They can't reach. They're holding their kids up on their knee. And instead we had benches underneath all of the bathrooms. So they'd pull out the bench and there's our logo on the bottom. We probably got 20 kids from the benches that we put in all the local restaurants. We still do that for apartments right now. So we did that. We dropped off, same thing we do in property management. I dropped off kids, when you go to a restaurant and you have the kids placemats that have activities on them. I went to all the little Mexican restaurants and collected all of those, and I redid them with their menu and had Montessori, Elements Montessori on the bottom. And I went back with 11 by 17 and I said, hey, I'm going to start printing your menus for you. And I dropped off 250 menus every week. And so my logo was in every single restaurant up and down the streets where we were. We had open houses. We had art shows where we would have the kids put art in the parking lot and we would invite the community to come see the art shows. They did, Monet, Renoir, totally, it was amazing. So it was super fun, loved it, had a great time doing it. But yeah, we recruited in that way. And our school was, and I also focused on healthy food. We made all the food. We didn't order anything. There was no French fries. It was, beans, rice, pasta, no hot dogs. It was very structured meals. We had zucchini and green beans and
yeah. Mm-hmm. So you had to design all this infrastructure, find the cook and the meal plan and all. This is all net new. There's not, because you said it's not a franchise.
No franchise.
So you basically are creating this from
all
scratch.
Of it. Created all of it from scratch. Yep. Logo. The kitchen, I designed the kitchen. Everything. I would literally go in the morning and cut the strawberries for breakfast. And, then by that time the opening crew would be there. Half the stuff would be done. Then my chef would come. And then I had a lady that worked at the school, at the local school, and she got laid off or something happened. And I said, would you, come work for us? When we first started, we had a manual dishwasher, the kind you have in your house, but it was on wheels. And because we couldn't afford anything, we were literally, and I remember the day that we got a commercial dishwasher. Oh my God, it was the best day of my life. You could wash all of the kids' dishes in 2.5 minutes. And it took an hour for a cycle. Normal cycle at your house is 45 minutes. That's how long it was taking us to wash dishes. So we would wash 17 loads. I got that commercial dishwasher. I thought I was I cried because I put it in and I watched it, and 2.5 minutes later, everything was disinfected. And I was what was I thinking? Yeah, we had no idea what we were doing, but our people were so happy. Our parents were so happy that they had healthy food. We were there, we communicated. And one of the things that I instilled there, which I told my people and I do in property management, is when a parent comes here and they want to withdraw their kid because they want to go to a different school or because, they're not happy, I want them to feel guilty when they come tell me that. I want them to say, I'm so sorry that I'm moving or that I have to withdraw, because I want them to have that feeling, to feel like this is the best thing they've ever had and they feel guilty for leaving us. And I try to instill that with our people. Like when someone gives you a notice to vacate, I want them to feel bad that they have to leave. Have that personal connection with someone where they feel like, God, I'm going to disappoint her if I tell her that I'm taking my kid out. Like I want that level of guilt with a customer, right? I feel like that's how you're really connecting. And that's what we're missing in society in general, right? In properties, certainly. Like it's just so dime a dozen. Like there's apartments everywhere. We've got to try to connect with people better. And I think whatever the industry is, if it's apartments, if it's people, if it's grocery stores, like, when you connect with someone at a place, when you walk in to your Starbucks and they hand me my drink and say, hey, Stephanie, thanks that's a different feeling than anything else. And that's what I wanted to feel at the school. And I think that's why it did well. And that's, hopefully that's the feeling on why we have fairly less turnover than most, because they feel guilty when they have to give me a notice. They don't want to leave, but I had a supervisor leave me and she left me because they were going to offer her like $40,000 more. And I'm like, I can't meet that. We had a party for her, had a great time. She was back in 6 months because I want you to feel like that. I want you to feel like I'm your best ally. So anyway, I don't know why I got on that. Go ahead.
No, that's
sorry.
It's really interesting. I think my co-founder went to a Montessori school for a little bit, so I've heard about
amazing.
it.
Do you have kids?
I don't have any kids. No.
I tell everyone, I'm like, investigate Montessori. It is amazing what they do. They have children cutting, like we had kids cutting fruits and vegetables from the advanced class. So that's 5 years old. They would cut the vegetables and the fruit for the toddlers, like in with the teacher, in with the chef with, we have the little cutters and they would cut it like amazing. Like, and we're babying these kids when they're capable of so much more. And so
it's almost it's an allegory to like entrepreneurship in some ways, right?
Totally.
Because you're kind of like doing things that like, if you actually zoom out or look at it logically, it's like, wait, why are you positioned? Or like, what authority do you have to go start a company at 17 or 18 or 20 or, 40 and do all these things that like you on the surface seems like you're not like qualified to do.
Mm-hmm. Oh, everybody told me. Everybody, like, they were like, Yeah, I remember people going, when you told me you were starting a school, I was like, there she goes again. And then I was like, have you come to the open house? And they're like, what do you mean the open house? I'm like, the school. Like, I opened a school. What do you mean you opened a school?
So what I'm curious to know is like, what is going through your mind? So you have this idea, you want to start this school. You had no experience doing it. What are the honest thoughts of what's going through your mind? Is it like you just have this intuition that you can do it, or like what is going through your head?
Yeah, that's exactly.
Yeah.
I do doubt things. Like, I don't feel like I can do anything. I don't feel this like, oh, I can do it. It's just like, what could go wrong? Right. And I think I look at most things like that. I'm like, well, what could go wrong? Like, if it doesn't work, then okay, it doesn't work. But of course I can do this. I believe in people. I have brains. I'm resourceful. I can ask for help. Like, I'm not too proud to ask for help. I'm not too proud to say, like, I don't know how to do this. And so you just find people that know how to do things, or you fake it till you make it. You know what I mean? And there was a lot of that, like a lot of I have no idea, like a menu. What do I do? Well, I mean, not much that we do in life hasn't been done. Right. So it's not rocket science to go to 5 different schools and collect their menus and figure out what you want to do. Right. And then how you can be better. And like the dishwasher, there are some things, I mean, are you kidding me? I didn't even know right. And now ironically, someone that works for me, her parents own a commercial dishwashing company. She was like, oh my God, you had a regular dishwasher. But those things we didn't know and we did them wrong. And then we figured it out. And so I'm not afraid to fail. And I say all the time, like, if it doesn't work out, then I'll just go be a barista at Starbucks. Like, I'll probably be making less money because I'll get free coffee. Like, if I take that out of my budget, right? But I just think that's it. I don't have a fear. I don't have a fear of failure. I failed lots of times. And what is failure really? It's just not succeeding at this thing. That doesn't mean I'm a complete and total loser. It just means I'm not really good at skiing. But that's okay. I'm really good at making lunch for the people that ski.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I feel like failure, like that you're raising a really good point, because I feel like failure in some ways is almost like at least in certain parts of the country, like Silicon Valley, right? Which is the world I'm closer to. You're like, failure almost has like this like appeal to it. It's like, because if you started something, people envy, like people, I feel like, live vicariously through others that are doing things that they wouldn't be able to do or they don't want to do, right? So it's almost like, even when we like hire for our company, I would all day hire somebody that tried something and it didn't work out, because there's certain characteristics that it takes to like try something and it fail and like go through that process. And I think it's just valuable. And I think I see it similarly. It's like, I almost like think failure is like great. Like it's a skill.
Yeah.
And it's a valuable skill to look at in other people that fail.
Yeah. I mean, I think I certainly think that risk assessment is important, right? Like, you know, if I fail at a $1 million project, like I can't imagine what the level of Silicon Valley failure to me would be. That's scary, right? Thinking about that, I think I have maybe a threshold of what I would try, but the attitude of just getting it done and figuring it out. Like, I'm very tenacious. They have Cultivate as an NAA conference that they had several years. They're not doing it next year, but it was a smaller, intimate environment that the National Apartment Association did. And it was called Cultivate. It was maybe 200 people. And they have a not a story core. You know, the Moth podcast? Oh my gosh, you've got to look up the Moth. Okay. It's basically, you go in front, you have 5 minutes and you tell a story. You have a structure of the story, and it's an impromptu kind of process. And each of the sessions has a theme. So maybe the theme will be failure. So there'll be 5 people that tell a story, and all of them have some relation to failure. So you'll tell a 5-minute story on something that you did that was failure. And we talked about one of the things we did at Cultivate was I participated in this Moth podcast, and it's a podcast formally, but here they did it on a local level. And I talked about my journey with the Montessori school and how I did this pro forma, and that's what it looked like. And I did a replace all units with kids. So that was kind of my theme, is that never underestimate the value of replace all in your life. Because whether you're bartending or whether you're dating people or whatever it is that you decide to replace, like, do it all, right? Like, I'm no longer going to be a bartender. I'm going to replace all of the bartender experience in my life with leasing agent, right? Like, just do it. You can hit replace all on your computer easily. Why can't you take exactly that and relate it to something else? And so that realization of, you can replace all. Just hit the button. Let's change. You know what I mean? Let's refocus our efforts that we know and apply them in a different way. So again, nothing we do is brilliant. It's all been done before. It's just embracing it. I think that's why too, I'm so open with information for people. Like, we had a conversation earlier about the guy that said, I can't believe you're giving me all this. I'm sure I stole something from someone. Like, someone gave an idea and I said it was mine. I'm sure that's happened 1,000 times, but I probably did it better. Right. And so if somebody takes my ideas or my performer or whatever, I send everything in Excel. I don't care. If they take it and they do it better, then I am doing something for the world. Right. Like, if someone was to take my idea and I stimulate growth or I do something or focus them in a different way, then great. All I want is for everybody to do better. Right. Because everybody does better when everybody does better. Right. And so, yeah.
There's a good quote that we were talking about actually earlier today. Good artists copy, great artists steal. And I think there's some merit to that, right? If you look at anybody that has been successful and you ask them like who their role models are, they're going to tell you people, and then they're obviously most likely mimicking that behavior.
Yes.
So like you said earlier, like nothing is net new. Like everything exists.
Yes.
Like we've been around for millions of years, thousands of years. What are you doing that's really net new? So it's all some regurgitation, or you learn something from someone and you're just repurposing it as if it's your own.
Well, just like when you hear the same, I do training sessions all the time, and I'm like, I'm not teaching you anything amazing. Like, I am not some brilliant person, but I hope that I say something or show you something in a way that clicks for you, that makes a difference. That's all you're really here for, is I want to change. What are the 3 things I can learn or see from her that is going to spark me to change something, right? And so if you enter into relationships like that, where your expectations are a little less, then I think that helps. Like no one person can fill someone else's bucket completely. We've got multiple buckets. And so figuring out those people in your life that can feed and fill your bucket is important. And same thing with business. And why do I have, 5 businesses that I run? Because my bucket isn't full with property management. Because I have certain skills that can reach there, but I've got so much more to give on, education or on training or on, if right now we don't have the school, we sold the school, thank God, right before COVID. But, now I have a multifamily cruise that we do, right? So there's always going to be something where I've got to find something that it ignites or that can feed someone and feed myself.
So just one more question on the Montessori stuff. So obviously, you're going to a lender. It has to make sense financially, right?
Yeah.
How does it compare as a business to like property management?
What's interesting, there's a lot of parallels. Like I realized why people are so crazy because they start off with kids and parents that are crazy. Like there is not many lessons that are different from Montessori school than there are to apartments. Like it's the same. Crazy. Don't hit each other. Don't pee on yourself. Like the residents were exactly the same, but it's a lot of parallels. Insurance and even
financially.
Yeah. Insurance was the same thing, was high, right? There's a high risk. It's a high risk activity. You don't realize how much children try to kill themselves when they're in school. Like we had children like try to throw themselves off of devices, like not physically kill them, but like just walk off the top of a slide. No problem. Just break your neck. So financially it was pretty parallel. We made good money doing it. But I have to say that my mother-in-law invested, and she said, I'm gonna invest in this business. And it's interesting because when we sold the business and we gave her profit back, she was like, "Wow, I had just written this off," and I was like, "What?" And I'm thinking she's investing us because she really believes. No, she just was like, okay, my kids need money. I'll give it to them now because when I die, I'm going to give it to them anyway. So I'll just give it to them and see if they can and I was like, you really gave us this investment thinking that you were never going to get it back? And she was like, well, yeah. Like, why would you start a school? And I'm thinking, wow. Right. And you wonder how many people thought the same thing. Like, oh, and then I realized that when they say, oh, Stephanie's doing this, they're thinking, oh, right. They're not thinking like, oh, and now I've noticed the tone has changed. They're like, oh my God, what are you up to now? But I think when I originally said it, it was a profitable endeavor. It's very challenging if you're doing low, I don't want to say low income, but lower daycare, like your level, because, and if you want to do it right, your profit margins are going to suffer just like apartments, right? Like if I ran it the way the state wanted me to run it or the way the state said I could run it, then I would have made a lot more money, but I never ran our school that way. So, in 5-year-olds, it's 1 to 10. One teacher to 10 children. And I don't know if you've been around even one 5-year-old boy, but 10 of those in a classroom with one teacher, doesn't matter if it's Montessori or not. So our ratios were always less than everyone else's. So we had, one teacher to 5 students. Much harder to make money that way. And it's a 30-day notice in our school, and you could pull your kid. So you think about that too, like at least in a lease, you've got 12 months, right? That you're locked in, but you invest this time into a kid and they can just give a 30-day notice and you're out. Then you've hired up, right? So it's a challenging situation. There needs to be supplemental grants, financial aid for preschools to get the quality that we need. We need to pay our teachers more. I paid my teachers more than anybody else. They told me that I had benefits. None of the other preschools had benefits. I had full-time teachers, not part-time teachers. So to do it well, it costs money. And that's the other thing that's interesting is as much as you may think that you want an owner that focuses solely on that business, you have to be diversified to make most businesses work. So if you have someone that only owns a preschool, they're going to try to run that the best they can to make the most money, not necessarily run it for the long term of profit over time. And because that's their sole source of income. So it is important too to make sure that you diversify yourself, because that way it gives you some options. If the daycare was just breaking even, I still could make money on this side, right? And when Q10 wasn't making money, I was doing speaking engagements and doing consulting and wasn't taking the salary, so I could put money back into that. So I feel like you almost have to be, if you're an entrepreneur for sure, you have to be able to have your hands in many buckets.
How big of a role has money played in your life? And has it changed over time?
Well, if you ask my husband, I don't even think about money, which is probably really bad. He runs all the finances. Like I'm not even quite sure like if my paycheck hits the bank sometimes. Like I don't look at it. Because I just figure it's going to sound bad. Like when you don't realize you're poor until you leave, until you grow up. Like we were poor. Like when my mom was a single mom, we had no money. I never wanted for anything, but didn't realize how poor I was until I left. We had bars on our windows and I thought that was an upgrade, right? Like that's where we lived in that area. So I remember when I found my own house, I was like, how come they don't have those bars on the windows? And they're like, what do you mean bars on the windows? And so we lived in a rough area and you had bars on the windows for security. That's why, heaven forbid it caught on fire because how do you get out? But so I never really thought about money or what it looked like. When I went to college, I got some grants, but I got loans. And when I left, I had loans for 10, 15 years after, 2% interest. I just paid them and didn't even think about it. I've always thought that money will come I'm not afraid to work hard. So I always thought that money will come if you work hard. And so I don't really think about it. Luckily, I'm with someone that is very financially savvy and very attuned to it and invests and does all the things and makes sure that the IRAs or Roths and all the things. And from a business perspective too, he really focuses on the Q10, making sure that Q10 is financially solvent. And from the time I've ever started a business, I always said I want to have 6 months of money in the bank for payroll for 6 months for my employees, because if something is to happen, I can't leave them high and dry. So I had that philosophy at the school. Like we would put money away as much as we could to just make sure that we could support our team if for some reason we had to close the doors. So that helps, being conscious of it. But I will do anything I need to make do. So I think that's why money hasn't been a problem with me.
Yeah, that's something I've learned actually recently. I grew up pretty financially insecure, so I kind of associated security with financial security. Mm-hmm. And I think over the last 8 years since I've been working on my own thing, I've kind of realized there's a difference between financial security and financial confidence. And I think financial security is like, okay, you have, let's say you spend $200K a year, you have a family of 5 and you're making $300K and like whatever, you can save $100K, whatever it is. Financial confidence, I think, is the belief that you, no matter what, can make money through your hard work and through your effort. And I think that's kind of what you said. And that's where I'm trying to like morph my opinion and my like base state, emotional base state. Because like, if you believe that you can like make money, whether you are technically financially free or not, doesn't really matter, because you believe you're a individual contributor that can go out into the world and like contribute and create value and then return money. So
I think that's humbleness too. The humbleness I talked about, like realizing that you can do anything. Like I can work at Starbucks, I can do grounds, right? Like if you're humble enough to say like, whatever I need to do, I'm going to make money and be able to feed my family, then that's important. But the other part of it is understanding that you're employable. And I tell my people that all the time, like, if this doesn't work out, you're employable. Like you can go anywhere and work, right? So don't beat yourself up if this isn't what you want to do or you're not succeeding at this. You're very, very employable. And so take a risk. Take the risk to go, you know what? I'm going to either go out on my own and see what that looks like, or I'm going to try a different position, or I'm going to take less money in this case so that I can learn more, because you can always go back. Like as long as you believe that you're employable and you believe in your skills, then whatever you do is going to be successful, right? It may be a monetary setback. You maybe not be able to get, make better decisions too. Like, I don't drive a new car. I drive a used car. It's paid off, right? Like I don't go out as soon as I made my first 100,000. I didn't go out and buy a Maserati or a Porsche. No, I always buy used cars. I have a used car. I have because it doesn't make sense that I don't want to be a victim of that, right? I want to be able to have monetary setbacks and not feel like there's a problem.
Why start a property management company of all things?
So I didn't want to. I was working for one of the big...
Sorry, it sounds like you started with your husband. Is that...
No, he was trying to... Yeah, so
okay.
James had his own family business. And so he did commercial telephone systems, had his own family business, was kind of, running his own show. And I had, W-2 income and it was fine. So I had that once I saw that that helped because he had that entrepreneurial spirit and realizing that he had that structure for that. I was working for a major management company and thought I was going to die with them. Loved it. Was great. And when I got pregnant, I had this epiphany when I was walking in the parking garage and all of the guys I was, on the third floor walking pregnant as a house, huge, walking to the thing at 6 o'clock at night or 7 o'clock at night because I was working and the guys were coming back from playing golf all day, parking in the front parking spaces and going up with their, halfway drunk to the office and picking up their stuff to go home. And I was like, wow, what am I doing here? That I'm big as a house and so that male female role really set with me. And I was like, So I knew that if I left and I did something, I would probably do something female oriented and have, because I realized that I wanted women to have a voice in property management and I felt like they didn't. We do a lot of the on-site work, but those upper management jobs and those VP and CEO roles that I had always seen from a very male perspective. Middle management was doing all the work on properties and the other people were, pursuing other avenues. So I was a little bitter and I didn't want to do it anymore. So when I left, I did the circuit and was training. And one of my clients called me and said, You've got to open a management company. Everything's different. My property's tanking. You got to help me. And I was like, no way. I do not want to hear owners calling me at 4 a.m. because their pool's green. I am over that. I'm going to do something else. Then they said, just take our properties. Right. So I'm a sucker. And finally I said, okay, fine, we'll do this. So, and that's when I was already midway in the school. So I was breaking ground on the school and decided, well, what's one more business? So literally, I think we opened up the school in 2016, in the summer of 2016, when Q10 was a year old. So we had been running it out of the house and then moved it there. So we did both of them at the same time, tandem. And the same reasons that I hate property management today are the same reasons I didn't want to do it then. The expectation on the teams are just so great. And, owners calling you at 4 a.m. because or on Sunday that their pool's green, right? But like you said, you said something about, having clients, I don't know, it's something related to this, but the long and short of it is realizing that the people that if you've done the work before, and the best clients are the ones that have managed their own properties before, or the best clients are the ones that have experienced that before. I think you said that on the Silicon Valley side, right? Those failures, they've been in property managed, they see it. And so anybody that comes to me that says, hey, I have an asset and I've managed it, I'm like, oh, okay, let's talk. Because they know the people part of what we do is so hard. And so property management is easy. People management is crazy, right? And so it's not the property management that is bad. It's the people management. It's the drama. It's the, my dog died and, I can't come to work today, or, that's the hard part of what we do. And now I would say post COVID, it's gotten so much harder than it was before.
Why?
People are angrier than they were before. I think people had a paradigm shift to realize what they wanted in their life. And so that work from home, I want better value in my life and I don't want to work so hard. That's a good thing, but it hinders us as employers. Because everyone thinks everything can be done remotely. Our residents have expected more. Residents are more savvy too with evictions and with paying rent, and things have taken so much longer that they've realized I can live here. So that's been a struggle. Yeah, those are the main things. I think it's just people are, it's just harder from a collection standpoint, and expectations are higher because insurance is higher and taxes are higher, and right, all these things. The level that you have to produce to make a property profitable now is a little bit more challenging.
I want to ask you about if people management is a problem, how do you think technology is going to impact that with AI and so on and so forth?
Yeah, we use AI on our properties for leasing and for collections, and it was a hard sell. Do I think that AI and anything will be completely remote? Never. I don't think so. There's a component to that. I hope that we get to a point where we can replace people a little bit better now. Now we sell it all as, my leasing agent has an assistant and my assistant has an assistant, and that's my AI friend. I think it's going to have a big impact for people that don't want to deal with it or handle it. I look at it a little bit like I looked at reviews. Remember when apartment ratings first started and it was like the Antichrist? And so everyone was like, I'm not going to touch it. I'm just going to pretend it doesn't exist. I'm going to pretend apartment ratings doesn't exist. I'm going to pretend that social media doesn't exist. I won't have a Facebook. I won't have any of that. And then all of a sudden, I think it was really when COVID hit, when everyone realized, and it was probably a little bit before that, but I see a lot of property management people, when we had to go remote on COVID, that was when everyone was like, oh my God, I have to embrace social media. I have to embrace cameras. I have to embrace e-leasing and touring on your own, right? That was a huge paradigm shift for all of us, that we had to embrace technology in order to produce and keep our properties alive. And I think that's what it's going to be with AIs too. Like people are, putting their heels down, like I'm not going to do this. And at some point, there'll be a paradigm shift where it has to happen. I know that there are a couple management companies that I've been communicating with that do they have reduced their workforce to nil. Maintenance is really it. Then they've got one person on property and everything else is done remotely or with AI. And they have been, successful. I think it depends on the level of property too. If you've got crime or homelessness issues or those sorts of things, it becomes a little bit more challenging. And then from a third party perspective, it's challenging to figure out how you bill that out, because the way third party management is designed is the on-site team is the owner's responsibility, right? We employ them and bill that back. But when you take away those processes and I have one leasing agent or one collections person that is handling 3 properties, how do I bill that back in a way? Because it's not on property. So, so those will be some things we need to kind of figure out as an industry. But I think that it is going to help those that want to be helped. Even my old school managers that were resentful about it are now like, I get it now. Like, I like it. So we've had it over a year that we've been using it. And it probably took a good 8-9 months for those people to really be like, okay, I'll go on and look. So I think we'll see a shift in the industry. I think it will involve less employed people, but I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing because it's so hard to find people. I mean, it's really become challenging, and you add immigration issues to that, it's going to get even harder.
What problems do you think are overlooked by technology companies to solve? Like everybody's so focused on leasing and collections. What are some problems that are overlooked?
It's a good question. Maintenance and supply management, parts management. There's a lot of parts that walk off or get wasted or, I don't have anything. Every time I go into a shop, they're telling me I don't have any supplies. And I walk in the shop and I'm like, looks like you got a lot of supplies to me that aren't, So I think maintenance management and is highly overlooked. I've seen some companies start to do like move-in processes where once you lease the apartment, you turn everything over to them. That is overlooked. I also think that this is part of maintenance too, the entire kind of move out, move in prep process, the make ready process on what you replace and what you don't and how that works is overlooked. And then the resident management to mitigate some of that risk and challenges when they live in the apartment is important. You have some people that you won't have a work order for 3 years and you walk in and the unit's entirely trashed. You think, wow, if I had come in at 6 months, could I have stopped this from happening? Yeah, I think those are the big ones. Maintenance, if we could do something from a maintenance perspective, I think it would be helpful. I tried a product called, I won't tell you what it is. I don't know if you can drop names about that, but we tried a product that was, they would answer all of the maintenance calls and have guys remotely deal with them as much as possible and then take extra notes. And even in some instances, they would say, hey, like I can help you with that. Let's do a FaceTime. And maintenance is behind. They won't get to you for 48 hours, but I can help you. And they would, mitigate and try to do what they could remotely. And we had a lot of success with that at first. And then it kind of dwindled off where people were like, I don't want to replace my toilet guts anymore. I want somebody to come fix it. But that I thought was a really good avenue to start that process of helping with the maintenance stuff.
I want to end with one question. Mm-hmm. So you started a management company, you've started a school, you mentioned something about cruises, you do a lot, right? And I think that's because of, it's because you're ambitious. But what do you think the cost of your ambition is in aggregate?
My family probably suffers a little bit. I'm sure that you don't know what you don't know. Like those things that are going to make your kids go into counseling when they're 40, right? The time my mom didn't come to my soccer game will be the thing. And I'm thinking it's the time I didn't cook her beans, right? That is probably going to be something I learn when I'm older. I would like to enjoy my personal time more. Like I would like to chill out. It's very challenging. I tease all the time and say, if Q10 doesn't work out, I want to go have a taco truck in Mexico called Huetos Tacos, right? Or maybe I'll just get your RV when you're done and we can turn this into a taco truck. Because to me, that I would like to have something that I truly had fun doing, right? Like I enjoy my work and I enjoy doing things and getting things solved, but I want to do something fun, right? Like water ski or right, like something that, go scuba diving teach scuba diving lessons. So I think my happiness, and I don't want to say happiness, but my joy suffers because I'm always looking for the next thing to do, to conquer, and I don't mean that from a conquering way. I just mean it like literally, I think I'm programmed that way. I just am like, okay, what's next? Okay, what's next? Okay, let's try that. Yeah, I can do that. And I think also some of my relationships may suffer a little bit. I cancel meetings sometimes, like I was late for you, right? Like that, having that level of schedule and that level of commitment probably hinders my, you can't do everything really, really well. So I definitely think I'm like knee deep in a lot of things. Maybe it would be helpful for me to be head deep, neck deep in something that I could really indulge in and learn about. But maybe I just get bored easy. That's a really good question. I'm sure I'm going to wake up in the middle of the night. I don't sleep well, that's for sure. Like I have sleeping issues. So I'm sure that has something to do with me just constantly, what's next? What can I do? How can I help? What can I improve? What do we do wrong? How can I fix it? How can I make them happy? Yeah, all the time. So thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. This was really fun.
Yes.
It's very clear to me why you were recommended by so many people. And usually this is the second city we're in, but I contact people I know and I'm like, who should we meet? And usually when there's a bunch of people saying the same name, it's like, I'm not leaving that city till I meet them. So that's why I hunted you down because it took a while for us to schedule.
That's what's hindering. Yes. That's what's giving.
I was like, I'm not leaving the city till I talk to her.
Well, awesome. Well, it was super fun. I appreciate it. I love what you're doing. I think it's going to be super successful and fun, and I'll recommend some people for you too.
Sounds good.
Thank you.